Okay, so now we're basically done. Sally Jordan has very kindly offered to say some words, sort of summing up the conference and what's happened and maybe how she feels about it. So, Sally, if you're ready to do that, then go ahead.
Thank you very much, Christian, and hello, everyone. I think the reason it was suggested that I might do this was that I spoke towards the end of the first EAMS conference in 2016. And then I was very much taking a view as somebody who saw herself sitting at the edge of what was going on. That's for three reasons. I'm actually initially a physicist, not a mathematician, though I've done quite a lot of maths in my background. I'm now a professor of physics education. I'm absolutely not a technical expert. I never have been one of those. Much to my amazement, I've understood virtually all of what's happened at this year's conference, so thank you very much to me. I managed to follow it. And the third reason is that I don't actually work directly in assessment very much at present because of the nature of my job. So that was in 2016. At that point, I was a head of department at the UK Open University. And I, very shortly after that, was appointed as head of School of Physical Sciences. And I'm now in my second term in that role. So I think you'll realise that that means that you don't really get time to do anything much other than survive. And particularly through the current pandemic, it's been, I think, what you would describe as interesting. For that reason, I am incredibly grateful that this conference has run online, and actually also the format of it with the morning sessions and the afternoon sessions, and I'm guessing that other people have found that useful as well. It's been recorded, which meant that when I wasn't actually able to get to a particular session, I was able to catch up on it. And the website, which we'll still have till the end of the year, I believe, means that there's still a lot that we can work through. And, you know, there's just, hopefully the conversations will continue. I just think it was a brilliant decision. I believe that decision had been taken before we actually got into the, you know, before the pandemic happened. So it was, you know, great, and I'm very grateful. So I'm just going to reflect a bit on the conference and in general on the state of the assessment of the mathematical sciences, oops, Freudian slip there, as it is in July 2020. So COVID's had a real impact. I don't think any of us would deny that. It's had an impact on many of us personally. Martin was alluding to, you know, the idea that students may not be able to do it. It's affected actually many of us personally. You know, certainly some of my colleagues have been really very ill, some have been bereaved, and a lot of people have felt very isolated. It's also affected our working world. I'm employed by a university where we usually teach at a distance, but actually an awful lot, Martin especially, what you've just been saying now, an awful lot of that's impinged on us as well, because we usually have written exams that our students, of whom we have a very, very large number, do at exam centres all over the world. And so we've had to make exactly the same sorts of adjustments as everybody else. And I think Tim Lowe's in the audience. He knows probably more than most. He's our Director of Teaching in our School of Maths and Stats. We've had to make the same sorts of adjustments as everybody else. And I think what I want to emphasise is, do you know what? We've done okay. And Martin, you were saying very much that. We have to recognise that. We've had pretty good outcomes. And a lot of people that I've been talking to are actually saying, do you know what? We've learned from these things and maybe they're better than what we've done in the past. And there'll be elements of it that we go on using it. So thinking about the conference for a minute, most of us have participated from home. I did hear one person mention they were in the office, but I know that most of us haven't been. I actually love working from home. I'm really lucky. I'm here in a fairly large house, just me and my husband. I know that some people don't actually like working from home. I also know the practical difficulties it causes. I have, by very sneaky observation, noticed 2 small children, 1 dog, and 1 oversized slide rule. That's Chris Sanguin's in the background where he's been working. I just really enjoy it. I love that we are talking together in this way and that we're able to do it. We've had a couple of minor technical problems, but everything's been resolved. Thank you, Tim. Yes, there is 1 piano, and no, I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to move on to talk about the 3 groups of attendees who have sort of observed and the things that's brought out from the conference for me. So, particularly because of the situation in which we found ourselves, there were people who were really pretty new to e-assessment. And I think it's great that there are all those tips for good practice on the website. I think the other thing I'd emphasize is that e-assessment is an enabler. In other words, don't throw out what you already know. It's still the case that there's a need for clarity in the wording of questions. There's a need to make sure that you're assessing the maths, not some other peculiar artifact. There's still a need to think, as we've been doing very much during the week, think about whether you want to assess working. And underlying all of that, there's actually a fundamental need to start by thinking about what your assessment's for. Now, obviously, with the emphasis, things like Martin's talk, we are very much talking the quality control, the end of year, end of module, end of degree assessment. But assessment's just as important for motivating students and engaging students. Interestingly, up until sometime, probably the end of last week, I was really expecting to hear more about feedback in all of this. And then suddenly it started coming. And I loved Vesna's mention this morning of the use of e-assessment as a way of avoiding that feedback graveyard. It wasn't a terminology I'd heard before, and it was really great. There are, of course, the experts here amongst us. I'm sitting looking at some of them. And there's been that real generosity, that real sharing of expertise. I liked Chris Sanguin's comment that he likes the fact that there are actually a lot of different e-assessment systems in prominence at the moment, and that they can all learn from each other. I've known particularly Stack, but I've also known about Numbus and WebWork for quite a long time now. And I just see that development going on and on and on. They just get better and better. And it's great to see that real willingness to learn from each other and that real humility. As I say, they've developed massively in the time I've been working in the area. I would say I first got involved in e-assessment. I hate to say it, but it was in 2002. So I am talking over quite a long period of time. I'm also interested to hear that we're moving the sort of focus of the conference. There was a lot of talk about ways in which students can add notes and submit handwritten writing and ways in which we can mark that. And I think that's important. It's all part of what e-assessment is. And the final group who've been here are the educational researchers. Now, I actually think the educational researchers is all of us. It is me. I mean, it is what I do. But it's all of us, because we actually all want to make that experience for our students better and improve our learning. I'm particularly interested in the at the moment in inclusive assessment, and I was interested, Christian, in your talk on that, and the fact that, you know, write a question in the context of Game of Thrones, which you might think is very clever to do it, but not everybody will understand it. And being aware of those things and engaging with our students to making sure, in other words, that our students don't actually experience assessment in the same way that we do. More generally, I think that if we continue to make the tools better, we need to research the impact of what we're doing And I'm just really thrilled about the discussions we've been having about research agenda during the conference. So in summary, I don't think we've done too badly. Now, this is the moment at which you'll have to bear with me while I do a sharing of my screen. I've got too many screens open, so I'm kind of hoping I'm going for the right one. So I'm hoping that you are seeing a rather ugly desktop. And I'm just going to go into a very short PowerPoint. So I'm coming back to that quote we had this morning, which I hadn't heard before, and I think is absolutely brilliant. We spend too much time. You may have noticed, I'm not a man. I am English. There's people here from all across the world. And I think that it applies to all of us. It's very, very easy to look for what we do wrong, what the difficulty is. And actually, I think we've done pretty well. I think we've done pretty well in the way we've coped through we are coping through the pandemic. And I also think that the organisers of this conference have done an absolutely fantastic job. That's my final slide. I don't expect they're going to say it. So I want, on behalf of all of us, to thank Christian and Chris in particular, but everybody else that's contributed for what you've done. I only learned a few minutes ago that I hadn't really thought about it. The people who organised this conference have also been doing all of those scurrying around behind the scenes to do everything. So on behalf of everybody, nobody else can clap, but I'm going to. So thank you very much. It's great. And I'll stop sharing.